Hi there, my name is Mr. Pete. I am a fourth grade teacher. I'm currently reading The Lemonade Crime, which is book 2 of a fantastic series by Jacqueline Davies called The Lemonade Wars series. Book 1 is The Lemonade Wars. That is part of the playlists that I have, so if you haven't read that, please go back and do that. We are currently reading Chapter 8, Defense. And we are heading down this path, heading towards this trial. We still don't know if Scott did it. We still don't know if Megan knows that the money that was stolen was part her money. This is getting bad quickly. Or maybe it's getting good quickly. We really don't know yet. We know Jesse is really into this. We know that Evan is outside playing basketball while she's prepping. But remember, he's not the one that asked her to do this. Megan just left to go to a dentist appointment. So make sure you write setting because we do have a bit of a jump in time. This is an Evan chapter. He is still out in the driveway, but this is a little bit later in the day. Chapter 8, Defense. Highlight vocab. Noun. The argument presented in a court of law to prove the innocent of the accused. In sports, the act of protecting your goal against the opposing team. Make sure you have setting written. We know that this is still the same day as last chapter, so it's Thursday afternoon, just a little later than 4 o'clock. It wasn't hot enough to sweat, but Evan was sweating. So what does that mean? You know, it's not hot enough to sweat, but he was sweating, which means he was working hard at his game. 2 wide rivers ran down the sides of his face, and every time he spun, he could feel droplets flying off the tips of his hair. Hyperbole, 2 wide rivers. He was going to get this shot right, even if it killed him. Hyperbole. He'd been working on it all afternoon. Actually, he'd been working on it all month. It was a turnaround jumper from the top of the key, a good 15 feet from the basket, and he was shooting with his left hand. That's what all the greats could do. Shoot with their weak hand and still make the basket. Evan's dad used to say to him, work from your weak side and no one will be able to defend against you. So again, a really quick mention about his dad, just like in the last book. So what's this character? So we've got, inside we have Jesse working hard on the court case. We have outside Evan working hard on his basketball game. So you can see they're similar, just in different things. Evan turned his back to the basket and planted his feet on the painted lines of the driveway. He dribbled once, dribbled twice, dribbled 3 times, then, like a rocket shooting off its launching pad, he sprang into the air and pivoted his whole body around. Highlight that, simile, comparing him to a rocket, and pivoted, turned, pivot. Even as his body was falling back to the ground, he got off the shot, falling away from the basket as the ball sailed toward the pole and missed. Sometimes he made it, sometimes he didn't. About 1 time out of every 10, he made the shot. 1 time out of 10. Let's see if you can write the fraction for that. Evan wanted to flip that around so that only 1 time out of every 10 he missed. It was a killer shot. If he had that kind of shot in his pocket, he could beat anyone on the court. If he had that kind of shot in his pocket, that's an idiom. Dribble once, dribble twice, dribble 3 times. Hey, Evan. Evan straightened up and looked toward the street. Megan was riding her bike toward him. She came to a sliding stop, then hopped off her bike before walking it across. Evan shook to get some of the sweat out of his eyes. Then he ducked his head and wiped his face on the sleeve of his t-shirt. Girls do not like sweat. I thought you had a dentist appointment, he said as she pushed her bike onto the driveway. It was short, just a checkup, she said. Is Jesse still in there? Megan nodded her head in the direction of the house. Yeah, still getting ready for the big day. Evan was dreading the trial. Highlight, vocab word, dreading, not looking forward to it. Every 4th grader was going to be there on the playground after school tomorrow. And what if Jesse couldn't prove that Scott Spencer was guilty? She wasn't a real lawyer, and could Evan really count on his friends? It seemed like every day this week, Paul and Ryan had gone to Scott's house after school. Maybe by the time of the trial, all the guys would be on Scott's side. Evan imagined standing up in the front of the whole class and apologizing to Scott. He dribbled the ball as if he could drum that idea out of his head. Simile, dribbling a basketball and drumming the idea that his friends are going to turn on him out of his head. Wow, said Megan. She gets kind of like obsessed, said Evan. Then again, he thought about what he'd been doing all afternoon. How many times had he practiced that shot? 100? 200? And he planned to keep going until it got too dark to see the basket. So maybe it ran in the family. As if she was reading his thoughts, Megan asked, "You been out here the whole time?" "I'm working on a shot. You want to see?" Megan shrugged and smiled, and Evan decided that meant yes. He set his feet and started his dribbling rhythm. "Please let it fall. Please let it fall. Please let it fall," he said in his head as he bounced the ball on the blacktop. But it didn't. It ka-thunked off the backboard and ricocheted toward the street. Evan had to run fast to save it from rolling into the road. Highlight ka-thunked, onomatopoeia. "That was close," said Megan. "You're really good." Evan shook his head as he dribbled the ball back to the center of the paint. "Close doesn't count in basketball. You either make the shot or you don't." "Well, it was better than I could have done," she said, "and I'm the best shooter on my team." Evan raised his eyebrows. "You play basketball?" "And soccer," she said, "but I'm better at basketball." "Really? Can you make a three-pointer?" Megan laughed. "Sometimes." "So let's see," said Evan. He tossed the ball to her, and she dribbled across the driveway so that her feet were just outside the three-point line. Evan watched as Megan handled the ball, watched the way her ponytail bounced back and forth, and her bracelets danced up and down her arm. Highlight personification. Bracelets don't dance. "Okay, here goes," she said. "Don't hold your breath, though." She lifted the ball over her head, then sent it sailing through the air like water shooting out of a garden hose. Highlight, simile, the way she shot to water coming out of a garden hose. It landed right in the basket. "Awesome," said Evan. He scooped up the bouncing ball and made an easy layup. "You want to shoot some? We could play horse or one-on-one if..." Evan thought about defending against a girl, and his stomach turned over on itself. Hyperbole. "How did you defend against someone without ever touching them?" "Can't," said Megan, looking down the road. "I'm going over to someone's house." "Whose?" asked Evan, bouncing the ball back and forth between his legs. He was a pretty good shooter, but he was a great ball handler. When he made it to the pros, he'd probably be a point guard. Sure, they didn't get all the glory, but point guards ruled the court. Megan waved her hand up the street, but didn't say a name as she strapped on her bike helmet. Evan stopped dribbling. "Whose house?" Megan kicked the pedal on her bike so that it spun backwards, the gears making a whirring sound like insects on a summer night. Simile. "Scott's. He said I could try out his 2020. An elbow to the face. That's how her words felt. Metaphor. Evan squeezed the ball between his hands. "Are you like best friends now?" Megan gave him a look. "You don't have to be best friends to go to someone's house." "Yeah, well, it sure looks like everyone is suddenly Scott's best friend." It seemed as if the 2020 was all anyone talked about anymore. Scott was always the center of attention. And now Megan was going over there too. Evan scooped up the basketball and threw it hard against the garage door. It made a loud, angry, rattling sound as it hit. Personification. Basketballs don't make sounds, and they don't make angry sounds. He threw it again. All any of you care about is that stupid 2020. Suddenly, Evan realized that Scott didn't need a lawyer. He already had the best defense in town, the 2020. Nobody would say Scott was guilty if it meant losing the chance to play with the coolest game system ever invented. "Oh, come on," said Megan. "I bet you're dying to try it out, too." Evan didn't respond. He just kept banging the ball against the garage door. Megan pushed off on her bike and called out, "See you in school." When she was halfway down the street, Evan shouted after her, "See you in court!" He's made a good point. They are all going to Scott's house, and they are all playing with him, and they all are probably liking it. He's forgetting, though, if he wins, he gets that Xbox, so they'll be coming to his house to play it. But is he giving his friends enough credit? Is he giving Megan enough credit? Like, are they really just not going to be his friend anymore because of an Xbox? It seems like Evan is very emotional and sometimes doesn't think things through. Okay? All right, very interesting chapter where we get to see Evan in kind of his Jesse mode playing basketball. He's obviously a really good athlete, whereas Jesse is a really good student. They definitely have similarities, but you can see they get angry very quickly, and Evan is worried now. Like, he's got all of his friends kind of playing with Scott, and he's got a point, but I don't think he's giving them enough credit. All right, that's it for Chapter 8. We head on to Chapter 9, a very strange title called Bonafide. Bonafide. So you'll definitely want to highlight that and put vocabulary word above that. We'll find out what that means tomorrow. Please make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And to all of my students, make sure you've got those notes done. To everyone else, thank you so much for joining my channel. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you join up. And I will see you on the next page. Peace.